Fox 61 exclusive now. It's a nightmare scenario when undergoing surgery, waking up in the middle of the procedure and knowing what's going on. But in some cases, that can be a lifesaver.
Lifesaver and necessary. We're going to explain that in a moment, but first we do want to introduce you to a man named Andy. Andy is a husband and father of 2 kids and a nurse. Another interesting fact about him, he's also a professionally trained singer. He's even performed with his church choir at Carnegie Hall. But Andy felt his entire life come to a halt when he was diagnosed with brain cancer. He needed surgery to remove as much of a tumor as possible, that tumor in the part of his brain that controls speech and, yes, singing. That's where a special surgery comes in. Surgeons at Yale New Haven Smilow Cancer Hospital have perfected a procedure called an awake craniotomy. They invited us into the operating room, and we did not hesitate to see this incredible procedure firsthand. In an operating room at Yale New Haven Hospital, doctors are working to remove a tumor from the brain of a 31-year-old man named Andy.
He is a singer.
He is?
Yeah.
A husband and father of 2. For most surgeries, waking up in the middle of the operation would be a disaster. But not today. An anesthesiologist doing his best to make sure Andy does just that.
Stay still. We're good. I need to stay still.
Surgeons have drilled through his skull and have already begun to remove part of a tumor located on the left side of his temporal lobe, the area which controls language.
You're doing great.
Medical staff puts a microphone on him. It's not for our cameras. It's so the entire room, including the operating surgeon, can hear what Andy has to say.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The procedure is called an awake craniotomy.
I do have a headache. I was telling you earlier, I don't know if it's from the brain surgery or the fact that I haven't had a cup of coffee this morning.
Neurophysiologist Brooke Callahan sits next to him and begins her work.
I am going to say a sentence, and I want you to repeat it after me. The seashore smells like salt.
The seashore smells like salt.
Good.
Their interaction can be heard on a speaker throughout the room. Neurosurgeon Dr. Jennifer Moliterno
What we're going to start to do
has mastered multitasking, operating, and listening.
Are we okay? Yeah, he's doing great.
Dr. Moliterno and her team work diligently to remove as much of the tumor as possible. What she can't see are critical microscopic language fibers which are splayed over the tumor.
The best way to try to remove as much tumor and preserve his language is to do it with him awake.
Get too close to those critical fibers, you'll know it.
What do you do in a chair?
I don't know.
You doing okay?
Yeah, a little bit of confusion.
So that's a great way to me to tell me to stop. And so even though there might be a little bit of tumor there, the risk and benefit of removing that tumor and having him not speak for the rest of his life tells you exactly what the right decision is. If he was asleep, I would have had no idea.
As Dr. Moliterno continues operating in a safer spot, Andy surprises us when this happens.
He does.
In the middle of surgery, Andy, a classically trained singer, shares his talent.
Never again.
2.5 hours into the procedure, Dr. Moliterno decides it's time to wrap up.
The surgeons are done with the first part of the surgery, so what's happening now is they're bringing in an MRI machine and they're going to look at the work that they did and see how much of the tumor they were able to remove.
We go into another room and are able to sit with Dr. Moliterno as she analyzes her work. The before
Here is the tumor.
and after.
You can start to see here. It's not there.
You don't have to go back in. You feel satisfied.
I feel really satisfied. Him being awake allowed us to get that outcome and preserve his function.
Now, Andy was back home with his family 2 days after surgery. 5 days after the surgery, he was able to sing at his son's baptism. He's also sang again with his church choir and the Yale Camerata, which is a professional choir, just a couple of weeks ago. Andy is undergoing chemotherapy and radiation, but he does say he's feeling good, and of course, warm wishes to him. He is just a great guy.
It's a fascinating thing. I've heard of this kind of surgery before. I've always wondered how I would handle it if I was awake while someone was performing surgery on my brain.
Right.
How did he handle it? I think it would freak me out.
Andy was so calm, cool, collected during that entire thing, and he did not lose his sense of humor. I mean, he had the entire operating room, the surgeons laughing. He was cracking up jokes while this was going on. So he had such a good, outlook on it.
Yeah.
And the surgeons there are just incredible. So we thank them for letting us come in, and Andy, of course, for letting us watch this very personal surgery.
Yeah, it is an incredible thing. I'm glad he's doing well, and good luck to you, Andy, in the long run.
Of course. All right, we have more coming up. The hit show.